In our last backpacking trip, our water filtration system failed on us. And this is not the first time it's happened with me. I've actually had 3 different water purification systems fail over the years. And the first system that failed on me was in 2010, and I was on a backpacking trip with a family of 5, my nieces and nephews. And we were in the Wyoming range, and I had a kitted in, hand pump filter. It was probably a 15-year-old version of the filter. And lo and behold, I got up there, and I was responsible for being able to purify water for all 6 of us. And the first time I tried pumping water out of it, I couldn't get anything through it. And there wasn't much I could really do. It was really embarrassing because when I had stored it away, the pump had worked fine, pulled it out, and all of a sudden couldn't get water through it. Well, after that filter failed, I decided I wanted to try something new. And these Steripens had just come on the market. I talked to a few people that had been using them, and they really liked the convenience of these. What the Steripen does is it uses ultraviolet light to neutralize the bacteria, protozoa, and viruses that may be in the water. It's a good combination for high mountain streams. The only downside is you need a wide mouth container, because you got to essentially put it in there and stir it around for a period of time. It won't work with some of the lighter weight, new, smaller water containers that a lot of people like to carry. Unfortunately, I was on a backpacking trip in 2017, and I pulled out my Steripen on day 1 of a 4-day backpacking trip and tried to turn it on, and it just didn't come on. I was really surprised because I tested it before the backpacking trip to make sure it was working, and my very first jug of water I wanted to purify, no such luck. Well, I learned my lesson from the first time around to always carry something as far as a backup, so I had some water treatment tablets, and we essentially finished out the rest of the trip by treating our water with water purification tablets. But it's like drinking a swimming pool. It's not the most pleasurable thing in the world, but it gets you by. And after my Steripen failed, I started looking around and reading reviews, and one of the more popular thing was this Sawyer squeeze filter. And these work really well. And I used this one for a couple years, and at the end of the season I would back flush it, and I would go through the process that they describe about essentially getting it set up for storage, which uses a little bit of Clorox and some water, back flushing. Well, went on a backpacking trip this year. I pulled it out of storage, put it through it in my backpack, and off we went. And so the first bottle of water I tried to purify, I couldn't get anything through. I tried squeezing as hard as I could, and nothing. I tried back flushing, it wouldn't back flush. And I thought, man, I just cleaned this thing out the last time I used it. I used the proper techniques. Why in the world is it plugged up? It was flowing freely when I put it away, and when I pulled it out, not a single thing I could get through it. Well, as it turns out, if you have hard water, that's like in our case, we probably have calcium in our water, and even though you flush the thing completely through, as that water dries up over a period of time, it plugs all those pores up. And when that happens, you can't even back flush it. So word to the wise, even if these things are working well and you clean them out and you store it properly, make sure you test it out before you head out on your backpacking trip. There's a good chance it may not work. I had backup water purification tablets, but I wanted to see if I could get this filter working again. So these things, they actually come apart. You can unscrew it, and inside here is the filter housing, and they have a whole series of microfiber tubes, and they're essentially bonded into a resin matrix. My hope was that mineral buildup had essentially built up on all these pores here. So I took a knife and I tried scraping this off, just hoping that the mineralization was there. And I tried to put it through the filter again. I gave it a good squeeze, and it just barely dribbled out, hardly anything. And I didn't have any vinegar or any acid to try to dissolve that out while we were backpacking, so I ended up taking it apart like this. I boiled up some water, and I threw it in there hoping that the hot water would sort of dissolve the minerals out. We were able to restore a little bit of the flow, but it's so plugged up now, I think this is trash. Well, it's been a couple weeks since my backpacking trip where my Sawyer squeeze failed, and I just purchased a new Katedin bee-free filter. I haven't tried these before, and I got the 3-liter bladder version. The technology that they're using for the Be-Free looks really similar to the Sawyer squeeze. And you can see there's a series of hollow fiber loops in here, bounded with a resin matrix. One of the advantages or disadvantages, depending on how you look at it, is that they're using a much larger diameter hole there than the Sawyer squeeze. And one of the things I didn't like about my Sawyer squeeze, and I was using the knock bag, is that you had to scoop the water out. And if the lake was real shallow, and you couldn't get very far out into the lake itself to scoop the water up, and so you ended up pulling up a lot of the sediment. And I've also found that a lot of the little critters, the little swimming critters and bugs and flotsam and stuff, just hang right around in the shallow part of the water. So if you can gather your water further out in the lake or the stream, the water's going to be a lot clearer and there'll be less floaters. Because of the way this is designed, it actually has an opening, and it has this pretty sturdy connector on here. I'm going to just loop a cord through here. Now keep in mind, if you use this technique, you want to test everything, make sure that it's good and strong. I say that works excellent. Now this is a 3-liter bag with the B3 filter. It screws on good and tight. Let's see if it's leak free. Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty happy with that. So it wouldn't be any problem storing this in your pack if you needed to dry camp with it. So on the B3, they've got a flip top cap on this. We're going to check the flow rate. Pretty good. Now sometimes you'll run into a situation where you need to get water from streams and there's not a lot of flow and the water's pretty shallow. It's hard to get a standard water bottle or a Sawyer squeeze or a knock or any of these kinds of things. And what I tend to do is I'll just clear out a little area if it's kind of a gravelly stream bed. Just kind of make a little pocket here. And if you've got good flow, just wait a minute or two for the water to kind of clear up. Now, once the water is cleared up a little bit, just take a little Ziploc bag and carefully put it in the stream of water and let it fill up. And even if you've got a bag that's got holes in it, now you can essentially transfer that to whatever other container you're going to use for filtration. Well, if you've skipped ahead to the end of this video and hoped that I would draw a conclusion as to which filtration system I prefer, I think you're sadly disappointed. To me, the best filtration system is one that works, and every system that I've tried has failed me in the woods. Make sure you have a secondary method to treat your water, because you'll probably need it eventually. If you found some information in this video useful, or if you've enjoyed it for just entertainment purposes, be sure to give me a thumbs up. It's an indication to me that there is an audience out there. So I hope you'll join me on my next adventure. And as always, be safe and be kind.